Because
Wait,
again, he hasn't redeemed us until Mashiach builds the Beis Hamikdash. He's not Mashiach. Finally, he will be, but he's no. But we're saying, what Rambam is saying, a person believes Mashiach did his role as Mashiach already, finalized, finished whatever he has to do. That's the problem. If you believe that there's a certain candidate that you believe will be Mashiach, you say it is because you're so sure about it. He has all the signs, but he hasn't redeemed the Jewish people yet. That's the problem. No one has said the Rebbe has actively, oh boy, has actively been, liberated the Jews from Golas. This is what this is the Geula right now. What's going on in the world? This is the Geula. Chas v'shalom to say that.
Big Bang, and therefore.
No, that's no one. God forbid to say that. That's apikursis. To say that the Rebbe himself said to say that we are right now at the beginning of the redemption is a heresy. We are in the darkest days of Golas. The Rebbe did say that Mashiach has started to do certain activities in the world, but not that Mashiach, that the Geula, the redemption, has already unfolded at the beginning stages. No, God forbid to say that. We're in the darkest days of Golas. Look what's going on in the world. The world is crazy. It's a crazy, dark world.
I definitely feel like I heard.
Yeah, we learned the complete
over
opposite.
and over.
No, you didn't learn the complete opposite. No, you can. It's just semantics. What you learned, I'm not contradicting what you learned from Rabbi Majeski, that's for sure. I can guarantee you that. We think alike. Not the Geula has already unfolded. Mashiach has.
No, it's unfolding.
ING, not ED. There's a big difference.
Yeah, but okay. Unfolding, why would it be unfolding? Because Mashiach, the Rebbe says in the Sicha, has started his activity. But that doesn't mean the Geula has unfolded. Is unfolding. You can say the process that will bring the Geula is unfolding, but the actual to say the Geula is unfolding, that would be called haschal at the Geula, the beginning of the Geula. That's not the case. The case is that we are in Golos, and in Golos there are things that are going on that are going to bring the coming of Mashiach. Mashiach is active already in bringing the Geula, but unfolding would already mean that it has started. When the Beis Hamikdash is built, that's where it's unfolding. And it's not complete until it's fully built. Let's say it's starting to be built. The start of the building of Beis Hamikdash. It's unfolding. And when it's finally built, it's unfolded.
The Geula starts only at the Beis Hamikdash?
Yes. The Rambam writes that the Geula started. There are things that are going on in the world that are preparing for Mashiach. Yes, I'm not denying chas v'shalom that for sure. The Rebbe himself said that Mashiach is doing things that are going on in the world through the power of Mashiach, whoever he is, and it's happening. Wow, I didn't think I'd get involved in this. Wait a minute, I wasn't mentioning myself. What?
Is there a distinction between redemption and Geula?
No, redemption is Geula. Well, all I'm saying here is that Mashiach has not done his role, has not done his job of liberating the Jewish people. If you believe in that, you have a problem. So when the Rambam writes, okay, I'll go one step further. When the Rambam writes in chapter 11 of Hilchos, 11 of Hilchos Malachim, he writes that, and people make a mistake and think that if someone passes away, he's lost his ability of being Mashiach. The Rambam does not say that. The Rambam says that if the person who had all the signs of being Mashiach ends up passing away, it means that he wasn't Mashiach yet. Do not believe, God forbid, that person already assumed the role. Could he be Mashiach? Maybe. Why not? Possibly him or someone else. The Rambam is not negating that a person passes away after having all the signs that he writes about Mashiach, that if he passes away, finished, you lost it. This person will for sure not be. All he's saying here is, I'm sorry, 1 second. All he's saying here is that do not think because he has all the signs, he already was Mashiach. That would be the same thing as Hillel. Hillel said to Chizkiyahu Hanavi, did everything he had to do. Finished. It's over. Now there's no longer Mashiach coming. We don't believe that. Those that say the Rebbe is Mashiach, I'm not saying I'm just saying those that say the Rebbe is Mashiach, don't believe the Rebbe will not liberate the people. He will come back and will liberate the people. That's the problem. If you say the Rebbe did the job and it's over already, and then we're not waiting for the Rebbe anymore, we're just waiting for Hashem to bring the Geula, that would be a problem. Whoa.
So this person's calling what Hillel said a heretic?
A person says, now, Hillel was allowed to say it because it wasn't clear then. But after the ruling of the Gemara that what Hillel said is heresy, if we continue saying that is heresy. In the Gemara, it wasn't resolved yet. So he had that thought. Comprendos? Okay, Parshas Yisro. I gotta go. I never get finished. How important is your question? 1 to 10. How important is it? Okay, it's not a 10. Forget about it. You'll ask me later. It's interesting. What I find interesting about this parsha, it's Parshas Yisro. It's Parshas Yisro, which is about the most central part of our history. The Torah was given to us. You would think it would be Matan Torah or something like that, you know. What's it called? Yisro. Who was Yisro? The Ger, convert. So it's interesting. We also find by Shavuos, we read a certain, not all of us do it, but some of us read Ruth. It's customary to learn all about Ruth. She was a convert. And it's connected to Shavuos, which is also the time the Torah was given. Shavuos is where we celebrate the Torah being given to us. So it's both Yisro and Ruth seem to have a connection, very strong connection with Matan Torah. What's so funny over there? What's funny? What are you laughing at? Nothing. Why would nothing be so funny? Okay. You're laughing at me?
No.
Okay. Some people laugh at me. It's okay. I think the lesson is very simple. The lesson to why we associate Matan Torah with converts. Some of us need to learn to act in your Yiddishkeit like a convert. For someone who just became a Ger, Georis, Judaism is so new and so exciting. Transferring your life from one end to another end, one extreme to another extreme. But when you do it, you seem to get used to, nature. You're born into it. How about adapting and acquiring the convert, the Yisro choice element? Choose Judaism. Don't only have it because your parents are both Jewish or you're born into it. Don't get Yiddishkeit. It shouldn't be something old. It should be something brand new and exciting. Just like a convert is new to Judaism, so too we should also acquire the Yisro trait. That's one lesson we should learn. And for the Ger, for the convert, do not feel you're an outsider. You're just as much an insider as all of us are. In fact, we all went through conversion. By Matan Torah, all the Jews converted. But it says we went through this process of conversion. So don't call a Ger more of an outsider than you are. We all were once upon a time outsiders. So it's a lesson for both. The lesson for us is try to acquire the excitement, the passion of something novel, something new to you. Choose your Judaism as if you have a choice. And continue growing. Don't ever let it get boring and old and okay, what else is new? That's a lesson we can learn from the name of the parsha. Matan Torah, if you want to really receive the Torah properly, do it like Yisro. Okay. The Sicha, whoever doesn't have a Sicha, I have a few more here. Any lesson from Tu B'Shvat? Yesterday was 15 B'Shvat. You learned a Sicha about it? Okay, I just want to give you one interesting. What do we learn from trees? 3 things. A tree is always connected to its roots. If you separate it from its roots, it dies. We don't find that by any other type of, living entity. Animals roam around. They're not connected to a certain, piece on the ground. Humans, for sure, are not limited. They're not stuck to their root. We don't see them being stuck to their roots because the earth is the source of all living. Earth, man was created from earth. Human beings were created from earth. Adam Arishon was created from earth. And everything, every live entity has to use what grows from the earth to live. If there would be no plants, nothing growing, we wouldn't have what to eat. Even animals that we do eat, we eat also other fowl animals, but they also need food from the ground. So everything comes from the ground. But yet we don't find ourselves attached to the ground, but the tree is attached to the ground, attached to its roots. So the Rebbe asked, what about fish? Fish are also attached to their source. They live in water. But there's a big difference. Yeah, it's not so obvious. It's not such a big novelty that fish are attached to they live in the water. If they're submerged and they're living in their source, of course they're going to be attached. The chiddush, the novelty of a tree is that it grows far away from its source. Trees grow and grow and grow for years and years and years. There's a tree in California, I think it's 3,000 years old. And yet, in spite of the fact that they're so far away from their roots, they're still attached. The chiddush is that even when you seem to leave your source, time goes on, and you don't feel so. You would feel you're disconnected. You remain connected in spite of the fact that you are a distance from your source. Fish are in the sea, so there's nothing to question. Obviously, if you're living inside your source, of course you're going to be attached. But trees are different. Trees are not living inside the ground. They grow from the ground 40 feet up in the air. And they're going on years and years and years from the time they were planted. And yet they're still the roots. They never forget their roots. That's one lesson. The second lesson. The second lesson could be is that trees are continuously growing. Animals stop growing after a while. Human beings for sure stop growing after a while. Trees are continuously growing. Growth, growth, growth. And thirdly, trees produce peiros. We have to be connected to our roots. We have to continuously grow. And we have to also produce, meaning not stick to ourselves and be happy and content with our own growth, but also pass the word on, share it with others, bring other people into the fold, bring children into the world, literally and also figuratively speaking, bring new Jews into the world, be Mekar of other Yidden. That's called peiros. The roots would be your emunah, your belief in Hashem, or connection to your avos, to your patron, to the avos and imois. Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. These are our roots. Our emunah, our mesiras nefesh. That's the roots. Then there's the bark of the tree. That's our Torah learning, our mitzvah doing. And then there is the fruit, the branches, and then there's the fruits. That's how we affect other people. That's all learned from the tree. Okay, I'm going to share that with you. This Sicha is a phenomenal Sicha, and others are not. But I'm going to give you a synopsis of the first chapter of this Sicha. What happened at Sinai? So the Rebbe is going to be asking a question here. Opening pasuk by Matan Torah. The opening pasuk of Matan Torah is Vaydaber Lakim. Hashem spoke all the words that he later on said through the Ten Commandments. Vaydaber Lakim is called Advar Ma'ela Lamor. What does the word Lamor mean? It means saying. Hashem spoke to Moshe, spoke all these words, saying. Of course he was saying, he was talking. What's the additional word Lamor mean? Now, usually it means to transmit, to relay the message to other people who didn't hear it. Hashem is talking to Moshe, pass on this message. Don't keep it to yourself. But that couldn't be the meaning over here. Hashem is speaking, there was no second hand. Everyone was first hand. We all were there, hearing directly from Hashem the Ten Commandments. So who is Hashem asking to transmit it? Transmit it to whom? To the next generation? They were also there. All the Jews of all generations, every single Jew of all generations. You were there, I was there, we were all there. Maybe not in body, but our souls were there. If that's the case, there's nobody to transmit the message. We all heard it firsthand. Again, when the pasuk says lamor, it usually means to transmit. Hashem speaks to Moshe, share it with the Jewish people. But here the Jewish people heard it firsthand, everyone. So the answer to the question is, you're right, it's a good question. The Medrash says that here the word lamor has a second meaning. Respond, reply. I want feedback. Hashem is saying, I'm going to say all these words, I'm going to give you all the Ten Commandments, but what I want is, I want to hear whether you accept it or not. I want to hear you to say yes or no. Do you accept it? Are you willing to accept it or not? I want your feedback. I want your response. How do they respond? How do the Jews respond? Anyone know? That's before. That's before Matan Torah. At the actual giving of the Ten Commandments, that was the day before. But when Hashem was saying those words, the Jews, after every commandment, said something. What do they say? You didn't know that, huh? I knew that. So there's a machlokes. What else is new? Always argument amongst rabbis. Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yishmael says, Well, on the positive mitzvahs, like keep Shabbos, remember the Shabbos, I am God, your God. They answered, yes, 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 we will keep Shabbos. Yes, you are God, you are our God. On the negative commandments, do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal. They answered, no, we will not steal. Al hain, hain, the Hebrew word is hain. Hain here means, in Hebrew, it means they, feminine. But in the Gemara language, hain can mean yes. On the hain, on the positive mitzvahs, they answered hain, yes. On the negative, lav. Lav is a Gemara language word. On the negative commandments, they answered lav. We will not violate. We will listen to you. On the positive, we will not violate on the negative. That's what Rabbi Shmuel says. You know what Rabbi Akiva says? No. Rabbi Akiva says they didn't answer no on the negative. They answered yes on both. I am God, your God. Yes. Lo tirzach. Do not murder. Yes. What does yes mean? Yes, we will obey. So basically, they are agreeing that the Jews accept the Torah. The question is, which word do they use? What's the significance? Why would you argue about what wording they use? The bottom line is that the Jewish people accepted it. So the Rebbe wants to know, what's the difference? Why would there be a dispute amongst the Mishnah sages whether they said, yes, we will obey you, whatever you say, or whether the Jews responded yes for the positive and no for the negative? That's the first chapter. Anyone want to say it in English? Anyone want to read it? No? Scared? Oh, bite. Go ahead.
Scared.
Okay, good.
So at what point did they say Nasa Nishma?
Day before, on Erev Shavuos. Hey, Sihon. They said Nasa V'nishma, but then
Before.
a lot of things happened. They got very scared. You're asking a good question. They said Nasa V'nishma, so why we already know they're going to accept it. But they got very, very scared when they saw all the thunder and all the lightning and they got very scared and they were about to back off from their acceptance. Okay.
Two different responses to Hashem's words. The Torah introduces the Ten Commandments by stating Hashem spoke all these words lamer. Generally, the word lamer is interpreted to mean to tell someone else, as in the many verses that state Hashem spoke to Moshe lamer, i.e., Hashem spoke to Moshe with the intent that Moshe relayed his words to the Jewish people. In this instance, however, lamer must be interpreted differently because Hashem spoke to the entire Jewish people at the giving of the Torah. Indeed, here, the entire Jewish people refers to all the Jewish souls, including those yet to be born in all future generations.
Including the converts too, by the way. Okay.
All were present to receive the Torah and all heard the Ten Commandments from Hashem himself. To whom then were the Jews, or Moshe, intended to convey the Ten Commandments? For this reason, the Mechilta explains.
It happens to be a medrash on the Chumash Shemos. Okay. Go ahead.
Explains that here the word lamor means to reply. In response to every commandment, the Jews replied that they would carry out what it required of them. The Mechilta relates a difference of opinion regarding the way the Jews expressed their acceptance of the commandments. Rabbi Yishmael states that they answered yes to the positive commandments and no to the negative ones. By saying yes to the commandments that involved their taking action, they implied that they would do what was asked of them. And by responding no to the commandments that involved their refraining from action, they promised that they would not do what Hashem prohibited. Rabbi Akiva, by contrast, maintains that they answered yes to all the commandments, saying yes to the positive commandments and yes to the negative commandments. This reply signified their willingness to fulfill each of Hashem's commands as required, doing that which was commanded and refraining from that which was forbidden. The reason for the difference of opinion between the sages calls for explanation. What difference does it make whether the Jews answered in the negative, that they would not violate the prohibition, or in the positive, affirming that they would carry out Hashem's command and not do what is prohibited? Seemingly, the intent of both answers is the same. They express their readiness to obey all of Hashem's commandments, both positive and negative.
I think. Why would you argue about which word, how they express their acceptance? The bottom line is they accepted it. Who cares how they accepted it? Which word they used? What's the significance of the argument? So chapter 2 says, well, you know what? There's another dispute between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi, saying these two rabbis. also about a subject concerning the giving of the Torah. What's the other dispute? After the Torah was given, the next pasuk says, and all the nation, B'chol ha'am ro'im es hakolos, they all saw the thunder and the lightning or the flame, the es halapidim. Saw thunder? They actually saw thunder? Well, Rabbi Akiva says, yeah. They saw what you normally hear, and they heard lightning. They heard the flames. They heard lightning, not flame. Flames you can actually hear. They heard lightning. Who hears lightning? And they saw thunder. Their senses were not limited anymore. They were able to see what you normally hear and hear what you normally see. Rabbi Shmuel says, no. What actually happened was nothing out of the ordinary. When it says they saw the thunder, it doesn't mean they saw the thunder. Thunder, you hear. They saw halapidim. It says, ro'im et hakolot ve'et halapidim. The word after thunder, that's what they saw. Everything was normal, no change, no miracles, nothing happened out of the ordinary. It was regular, like we see today. We saw lightning and they saw and heard thunder. He disagrees with Rabbi Akiva's verse. Okay. Machlokas. Now, a question can be asked on Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva believes that Hashem made a miracle, that they actually saw thunder and heard lightning. Why would Hashem make miracles for no reason? Hashem does not make miracles just to play around with the world. He cherishes the laws of nature. So I'm asking, why in the world would Hashem, just to, be cute, to show a miracle that you could see thunder and hear lightning? The answer must be, it wasn't a miracle just like that out of the blue. It was direct connection to the Torah given. The Torah, when it was given to us, elevated us to a level where our senses were no longer limited. So it wasn't a side miracle. This is what the Rebbe is going to be saying in chapter 2. Let's see it inside right now. Then the Rebbe is going to connect this argument, whether they saw the thunder and heard the lightning, or whether nothing out of the ordinary happened, to the other machlokas of how the Jews responded on the Ten Commandments. Do they respond yes on all 10 of them? Or did they respond yes only on the ones that were active, like the positive, and no for the negative? So let's see chapter 2. Anyone else want to say? Go ahead.
Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva were regarding giving of the Torah. On the verse, all the people saw the sounds and the flames. Rabbi Shmuel states the people saw what is usually seen in verse, what is usually heard. In this reading, the verb saw does not apply to the object sounds, which immediately follows, but only to the second object of the verb uses. He maintains that something that is usually heard, so it's heard and not seen. Rabbi Akiva, however, maintains that the verb's direct object is also its command object. According to his understanding, the giving of the Torah brought about an upheaval within the natural order. The people saw what's usually heard and heard what is usually seen. Sounds that are by nature heard were seen, and the flames that were seen were heard. There is a well-known general principle: the Holy One loves to be used not work miracles without a purpose. Accordingly, it is necessary to say that the miracle of seeing what is usually heard and hearing what is usually seen, as described by Rabbi Akiva, was not a superfluous happening that accompanied the giving of the Torah. That to be true, it would have been a purposeless miracle. Instead, it was an integral part of the revelation. The giving of the Torah elevated the Jews to the loftiest spiritual level. According to Rabbi Sicha, as a result of this divine effect, they saw what's usually heard and heard.
It wasn't like a miracle. Hashem decided, let me make miracles. It was a direct consequence of the Torah being given. It was automatic. When the Torah was given, we were automatically elevated to a level where our senses were no longer limited. We were able to see what you normally hear and hear what you normally see. Okay, but now the question is, the next page, what's the next page? Okay, so the next page, we'll have a little more to go. Go to the next page, on page 277.
With the verse having the backdrop of the giving of the Torah, it points out that one of the results of the extremely lofty state brought about by the giving of the Torah is that the Jews saw what usually seen and heard, what is usually heard. The implication is that this means that conception is granted to the Jews as part of the revelation of fact. This is problematic because clearly it's nothing absurd. On the contrary, that's wrong.
Understand what you said? Now we have to send Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel is saying, you know how great the Torah giving was? it allowed the Jews to be normal. Why should they be normal? Rabbi Akiva makes sense that the Torah is so powerful that it uplifted our senses. Rabbi Shmuel says, no, the Torah is so powerful that we retained our senses. Problematic. For that, you don't need Matan Torah. It would have been that way anyways. What do you mean the Torah accomplished that we should be able to retain our senses? So that's the question that needs to be answered. Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is where the Rebbe is going to be connecting the two arguments between the two rabbis, whether they answered yes on all the commandments, and whether they answered yes on the positive and no on the negative. That machlokas, that dispute, is directly connected to the dispute. Did they see what you normally hear or not? And the Rebbe is going to explain how they are connected. Okay. Anyone else want to say No one else. Okay. That leaves me. Since these two differences of opinion feature the same sages and concern the same subject, Matan Torah, there must be a pattern here. The giving of the Torah, it is logical to assume that they are interdependent and the sages each follow a distinct pattern of thought in both instances. Rabbi Akiva has one line of thinking in both cases, and Rabbi Shmuel likewise. The approach of the Jews saw what is usually seen and heard what is usually heard, like Rabbi Shmuel, leads to the understanding that the Jews answered yes to the positive and no to the negative. Conversely, the approach that the Jews saw what is usually heard and heard what is usually seen, which is out of the ordinary, leads to the understanding that they answered yes to both the positive and negative commandments. The question is, how in the world are these things connected? What's the connection? It's two separate arguments. And the Rebbe is going to quote Rashi here. And Rashi will be quoted later on in the Sicha. Rashi seems to connect. He's partially Rabbi Akiva and partially Rabbi Shmuel. That's a problem. Because we just got finished saying that these two arguments are related. When it comes to did the Jews see the voices, Rashi says, yeah, the Jews saw the thunder. They saw the voices. They saw the kolot. Kolot means the sounds. They saw the sound. That's like Rabbi Akiva. When it comes to how do they answer, what was their reply when Hashem says the Ten Commandments? What was their response? Well, they answered yes on the positive and no on the negative, like Rabbi Shmuel. So Rashi seems to jump to both sides. He seems to be Rabbi Akiva on one issue, Rabbi Shmuel on the other issue. How could that be? We just got finished saying that these two arguments are interrelated. So even though that really is not a strong question, because Rashi is not learning Chassidus with you. Rashi is teaching you simple shvat. And simply speaking, it makes sense to say that the sounds, when it says they saw, v'ro'im et hakolot, it really sounds like that they saw the sounds. Read the words. To say that no, the word ro'im is not going on the word right after, it's going on a few other words later on in the pasuk. That's not simple. Ro'im et hakolot ve'et halapidim. To say the word ro'im is not going on the sounds, it's going on the flames, on the lightning. That's already not the simple way of learning. But when it comes to how they responded, it makes sense. When you learn Rashi and Chumash, it makes sense to say that they answered yes on the positive and no on the negative. But the Rebbe says it's true that Rashi is not teaching you Chassidus, and what I'm teaching you here is Chassidus. We'll learn the whole Sicha. It's a very, very interesting shot in Chassidus, how the two arguments are connected. You know what? In Rashi, there are also secrets of Torah. Rashi wrote his words with Ruach HaKodesh. You know what that means? That even if he wasn't thinking, the words were so magical that you could learn 100 different ways of understanding Rashi, including all the secrets of Chassidus are contained in Rashi's wording. He was not trying to teach you Chassidus, he was trying to teach you simple shvat and Chumash. But the choice of words he used, inspired by Shamayim, were words that you have secrets of Torah in there. So therefore, I would like to be able to say that what Rashi is saying in Chumash and what I'm going to say in this Sicha go hand in hand. Let's skip this paragraph. We'll go skip this paragraph and go to the next page. So 1 second. This is page 277. 278. Let's skip to the next to the bottom of page 278 where it says 4. What distinguishes seeing from hearing? Okay, chapter 4. How do you differ? What's the difference between seeing something or hearing something? Hearing can mean even hearing with your ears, or I hear you, meaning I understand. I hear you. Either cerebral or it's audio. So it's two differences. What would you say the differences? Anyone give me, what would you say offhand are the differences between seeing and hearing? How would you describe how they're different? I know, of course, they're different, but how would you describe the most important differences between seeing and hearing?
When you see something, there's only one way to interpret it. When you hear something, you can always listen, but you don't always like hear it the way it's supposed to.
You're talking about hearing the voice, hearing the music, or hearing the. Yeah, okay, pretty close. What I put there, yeah.
When you hear something, it's internal, and when you see something,
Really?
the hearing is internal.
There's some truth to what you're saying too, but why do you say it's more internal than seeing?
Because there's something in your head that you're translating what is being said, and you're hearing and understanding. Versus
Why is it that when you see something, seeing is believing much more? If I hear, I'm not convinced 100% as much as when you see something. Huh?
seeing is knowing, hearing is
Okay, so you happen to be you're giving me the advantage of understanding. Okay, I get that. Because when I understand it, my brain now has absorbed it. Whereas when I see, I don't understand what I'm saying. I just know it's right. I'm focusing on the quality, on the advantage of seeing over hearing. So the advantage is number one, when you see something, you have no questions asked. If two witnesses say something happened at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, this person attacked that person, and it happened on Montgomery Street in Crown Heights. I was there. I know you're two witnesses, and you have to believe two witnesses, but I know you're wrong. I'm not going to have any doubts just because you're telling me the opposite. I know what I saw. But when I have a witness saying one thing, and I have another witness saying something else, if you hear something, logic tells you something, and then there's always counter logic. When I hear something, I'm not 100% convinced. Okay, I hear you. It makes sense. But if I hear, if I were to hear an opposing witness, I have doubts now. Who's right? You learn something, it makes logical sense. A minute later, wait a second, I have a question on that logic. Now you're gone, finished. You could always doubt logic. So what you hear is subject to change, subject to doubts. What you see, there's no room for doubts. That's one difference. The second difference is, what do you see? What is the object that you see? What's the object that you hear? You can't see a sound. Whatever is not tangible, especially if it's a concept, you can't see. Your eyes can only grasp that which has physical, which is physical. If it's the more spiritual it is, the further away it is from your eye to be able to see. Vice versa. Hearing, I can't hear an object. I can only hear vibrations if it's hearing with your ears. If it's a concept, then it's more spiritual. You can't hear something that's of the material of the Gashmistic world. Something that's within the material world, you cannot hear. You can see. So it's interesting. Seeing is convincing much more than hearing. And yet, what do you see? Something of a physical nature. Hearing is not so convincing. What do I hear? That which is not tangible. How are these two differences connected? The answer is, who are we? Are we spiritual people or physical people? We're the physical world. We're human beings. We're not angels. Therefore, because we are of the Olam Hazeh Hagashmi, what is more convincing to us? That which is of a physical nature. Whatever is physical, oh, yeah, I relate to it. If it's not so physical, I need proof. So these two differences between Ri and Shmiya are actually connected. Let's see it inside now. What distinguishes seeing from hearing? It is possible to further clarify the above by explaining two fundamental differences between, next page, 279. Well, yes, 279. There are two differences between sight and hearing. The first difference relates to the person seeing or hearing, how it affects you. Sight makes a deeper impression on the soul of the one who sees, and as a result, inspires greater certainty than hearing. No intellectual argument can ever convince a person who has seen something else with his eyes. So you could argue all you want and logically make sense, but I know you're wrong. I myself saw. Sight clarifies a matter and causes it to be imprinted on the soul with greater depth and certainty than one could do with his mind. This concept is reflected in the halachic ruling that is applied in day-to-day legal practice. Ein aid nase dayan, and a witness can become a judge. If you, let's say, were an eyewitness to a crime, let's say to a murder, you're disqualified to judge that case. Because once you saw it, you are so convinced that it's true, you'll never be able to accept another view. And a judge has to always be able to save a person's life, has to have the potential to give a innocent verdict. If he can't have that, if he doesn't have that potential because he saw it himself, you're disqualified. Why is that? Because seeing is believing. Hearing does not have that deep an imprint on the soul. Certainly, intellectual understanding, also referred to with the analogy of hearing, as the Yiddish term deadheaded, which means I hear you, does not have the same power to bring about the same certainty as sight. You're not so convinced 100% when you hear things from people, or logic tells you something. I hear you. I understand what you're saying. The second difference relates to the object seen or heard. Sight focuses on a material entity. One sees its physical substance. By contrast, it is impossible to hear a physical entity. Hearing responds to sound waves that are spiritual. When we say spiritual, we don't mean really spiritual, but they're not tangible when compared to something that is seen. How much more so does this apply regarding an understanding where you don't understand something that is even close to being physical, the ability to grasp abstract concepts. Concepts are much more spiritual than a sound. Sound you can hear with your ears. You can't hear the sound of a concept. So these two differences, says the Rebbe in the next paragraph, between sight and hearing are interdependent. The first difference and the second difference are really going to go along hand in hand. Why is that? Since a human being is a physical entity, it is therefore natural for him through sight to absorb and grasp another material entity in a closer and deeper way. So when something is close to you, you're physical, and that thing is physical, tangible, you relate to it in a very clear way. You can see it. You can actually see it. For human beings, the next page 280, are not capable of absorbing something spiritual thoroughly. Therefore, it is through hearing and through his mind that he absorbs the spiritual. When something is distant from you, it's spiritual, I can hear it, but I can't see it. Okay. Having said that, we get to the next part of the Sicha, chapter 5. When ordinary reality gives way. You know what it means when it says they saw what you normally hear and they heard what you normally see? What do we normally hear? What do we normally see? We normally see Gashmias, and we normally only hear about Ruchnias. Ruchnias is distant from us. We hear, it's far. I hear you. You can give me a lecture on things that are going on in the spiritual realms. I might understand it or might not understand it, but I don't see it. You know what happened in my Matan Torah? As a result of the Torah uplifting us, says Rabbi Akiva, you know what happened to our senses? We became closer to heaven than to earth. What was heavenly, what was normally something we only heard about, i.e. spirituality, we saw. It was obvious. The not obvious became obvious. Mashu lo pashut, naaseh lepashut. And whatever was pashut, achshav lo pashut. Ruchniyut, until now was rachok. We were distant from it. Lechos, not cerca, right? Far away. We were far away. We hear about spirituality. We learn about it. We don't see it. They saw it. The world to them became strange. There's a world? Yes, the Torah says so. That's how we know. The Torah is like an aid, a witness. The world was created. The Jews needed a witness that they exist. They did not need any witness, any proof that God exists. It became obvious. You know, there's a story with this non-chassid, Snagit, who had problems with Hasidically challenged, as they say. And he always complained why Chassidim laugh at him. Why can't you have respect to another Jew? Why do you always have to put us down? You listen? the non-Chassid was very perturbed why Hasidim always seem to be disrespectful to those that are not Hasidim. So once and for all, the Chassid says, okay, I'll tell you something. You know what? Here's the difference between me and you, between us and you. You, non-Hasidim, are always thinking about Hashem a whole day. We Hasidim always think about ourselves the whole day. So Masnagi was very, very confused. You really mean what you're saying? Wow, that's a compliment. First time I ever heard you give us a compliment. You finally said something good about us. So the Chassid says to the Masnagi, no, fool. I'll tell you what I meant. What I meant is, you guys are sure about your own existence. You have notions about it. You don't need to think about yourself. Hashem, really? He exists? Let's think about it. So you have questions about God. God is new to you. You need proof. You continuously think, is God really here or is he not here? Is he really here or is he not here? We Hasidim have no problems with God. That's obvious. That's Pasha. What's not Pasha, what's novel to us, are we really here after learning so much Hasidus? Why should I believe I'm here? Maybe we're just imagining that we're here. No, the Torah said that breaks his bar lakim. Oh, the Torah says so? Now I believe I'm here. So that's what he meant. He wasn't trying to compliment the Masnagi. He was trying to put him down, actually, again. So by Matan Torah, the whole world viewed, all the Jewish world saw godliness like it's going out of style, like it's obvious. What else is new? How could you even question it? And the physical world became something, really? How could something like that exist? God is everything. Why is there something that looks like it's independent? It's hard to imagine. So they looked at themselves and the world around them as something novel. They looked at Hashem as the obvious. Topsy-turvy, everything changed. That's what Rabbi Akiva says. Okay, but now we have to understand Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel said changed, the Jews were retained their own normal senses. The structure, the human tendencies of what you see and what you hear remain the same. We have to understand that. But let's first explore Rabbi Akiva again. So again, chapter 5. This represents one of the innovations that the giving of a Torah brought about, according to Rabbi Akiva. It generated the potential to see what is usually heard and hear what is usually seen. What is usually heard? The spiritual and the godly. Intangibles that can't be seen and can be appreciated only through hearing was able to be seen, accepted by the Jewish people with a certainty and concrete perception engendered by sight. Just like today, we have no questions about ourselves. We see, well, it's obvious to us. That's how obvious it was for them to have an experience, a godly experience. What was usually seen, physical entities, our material world, was then only heard. It was an entity that is distant, as it were, and could be conceived of only abstractly. They abstractly related to the idea that there's a world we created. Why is it abstract? Because it's hard to really believe in that. I thought Hashem is everything. There's actually a world? Well, the Torah says so. So that was something distant to them. Like an angel. Angels relate to spiritual much more than the physical. They have a hard time picturing anything that has physical form to it. That's difficult for them. And we were like angelic. We became like malachim. We lost our normal human traits and we were elevated to becoming superhuman, says Rabbi Akiva, thanks to Matan Torah. On this basis, it can also be understood that the miracle of seeing what is usually heard was not an external matter, but rather intrinsically unrelated to the relation of the giving of the Torah. But it was not an external thing, a side miracle, but was an integral element of that revelation. The giving of the Torah, the Jews experienced the revelation of Hashem's very essence. Hashem began the 10 Commandments by stating, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. He used 3 words. I, that's Hashem's essence. Havaya refers to Hashem's tetragrammaton, meaning the name describing his essence, but it's only a description of his essence, not the essence itself. Elokecha is where God is lowering himself down to the laws of nature. I am Havaya Elokecha. On the next page, 281, he says, Hashem, one second. Hasidus interprets the statement to mean, what does it mean that Hashem is Havaya and he's your God? It means Anochi, God's essence that transcends all being and can't be identified, can't be described beyond description, but has no name. Hashem has no name. The essence of Hashem has no name, and which cannot be alluded to by any letter or even the point of a letter. descends and becomes manifest through Havaya, which is Hashem's greatest name, the name of God, so lofty that it was not made known to the patriarchs, and enclosed itself within every member of the Jewish people, becoming Elekecha. Elekecha means your God, but also means your strength. So Hashem is saying with the very first words, I, my very essence, by the passageway of Havaya, which is Hashem's holiest name, it's the name that describes his essential nature. Elekecha has now lowered himself, lowered down to becoming your strength. That every Jew can live with Anochi Hashem. And therefore, when that happens, it's quite obvious that spirituality will be closer to you than physicality, closer to heaven than to earth. Because of the revelation, the Jews then saw what is usually heard, and they related to godliness and spirituality with sight. It became their visible reality. As a natural consequence, they heard what was usually seen. The physical aspects of our world lost their prominence as their perceptible reality. They were merely heard, abstractly understood, because then the Jews were focused on the spiritual dimension of the world's existence. Okay. In Hasidus thought, there is an explanation that enables us to understand the status of the world in their eyes at that time. This is how they view the world. God, Hashem, is singularly one and an absolute unity. Aside from him, there is no existence whatsoever. Accordingly, it is possible to conceive of the entire world as merely an illusion. However, Hasidic thought explains that this is a misconception. You're not allowed to, it's heresy. Just like it's heresy not to believe in God, it's also heresy to believe that the world was not created, that we don't exist. To say that we don't exist, and we're just dreaming, and we're in a mirage, we're hallucinating, that's also heresy. Because then everything is meaningless. But whatever we do, it has no meaning. Then your mitzvahs are imaginary. You're not allowed to believe. But a godly person, a heavenly person, has a problem, has a question. Do we really believe? And he's convinced that we do. Do we really exist? And he's convinced that we do exist only because the Torah says so. The implication is that the truth of the world's existence is proved not by the fact that to us it is tangible reality, but because the Torah of truth, validates it by saying, Bereshis bara Elokim. Similarly, at the giving of the Torah, the Jews did not relate to the world's physical being. They saw it as an abstract. But since God was commanding them to perform mitzvahs with physical entities, they understood that there must be a validity to the existence of those entities. So they saw this world from a distance. They were looking at this world from heaven's perspective of this lowly world. So instead of seeing heaven from an earthly perspective, they saw the earth from a heavenly perspective. Everything turned around. Okay. Interestingly, when you go, just Gashmi is also that way, when you go towards the moon, your flight towards the moon's in the sky. And then when you finally land on the moon, the earth is in the sky. Everything turns over. It's that way. Begashmi is because in Ruchni is that way. That when you go from a spiritual realm from a physical realm to a spiritual realm, what to you looks like it's right here is now far, and what was far is now right here. So everything turns around. It's that way in outer space because it's that way true in the spiritual heavens and the physical earth. The closer you get to heaven, the heaven becomes the ground, and the earth becomes shamayim, far, distant. That's how it works, up and down. Okay. But what we have to understand is Rabbi Shmuel. Now, the Rebbe brings in this next paragraph, in chapter 6, he illustrates this. He illustrates this with an example. You want to know how people have different perspectives on the same world. He gives an example. The example he doesn't give, I'll tell you what the example the Rebbe does not give. Famous example given in many of the Sichas of the previous Rebbe. You have a horse driver, and you have Hasidim who are going to their Rebbe. They need horse and buggy, they need the carriage, they need a horse, otherwise they can't get to their destination. So there are three different perspectives. There's the Hasidim, who are thinking about when will we get to our Rebbe? There's the horse driver, when will I get paid? He's the Balagola. And the horse, when will I get to eat my hay? All three of them are involved in the same trip. There's the horse, the reality of the horse is food. The reality of the driver, what is he focused on? His salary. What are the Hasidim focused on? The Rebbe. So they're all going on the same trip, and there's three different perspectives. The example that I was not give. What does he give in the Sicha here? He gives an example of a court case. You have the judge, you have the law enforcer, the marshal, the policeman, and you have the two litigants. Two people coming to court. They have a dispute. They found something. They found an object, and each one claims it's mine. I found it first. Called a talus. Actually means I beg it. I found it. It's mine. First come, first served. Finders keepers. No, I found it first. And they're both holding on to it. We don't know who hold it. You can't tell who found it first. And each one claims the other guy's a liar. I found it first. So there's litigants. Each one wants to win. What are the litigants interested in? What's their reality? What's their focus? What's their instinctive interest? Who wins? I hope the judge will issue a ruling that I am the winner and not the other, and not my friend, my opponent. What is the marshal interested in? He's waiting for his job to enforce the law. He doesn't care who wins. Do you think the marshal cares who wins? His job is, whatever the ruling is, I have to enforce. What about the judge? The judge is not interested so much in the ruling that is, there's a ruling here. He's interested in all the intricacies that leads to his final conclusion. The judge is opening a Talmud. He's opening up a Shulchan Aruch, and he's trying to figure out all the ins and outs of how to rule this case. So he's into the entire discussion of the Gemara, so he should be able to come to a conclusion. The marshal couldn't care less about the judge's knowledge of Gemara. He just wants to know when his job is to enforce the law. He wakes up when there's a final ruling. The judge is involved in a whole different world. He's involved in a Talmudic world. The marshal is involved in carrying out. His job is to make sure the litigants listen, and the litigants care who wins. So each one has a different interest in the case. For each one, there's something that's real to them and what it means to them, and there's something that's secondary, external, or consequential. So this is the first half of the Sicha, the long Sicha, and the Rebbe is going to soon tie in the two machlokas in between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel. We'll get there a little later. And then he's going to explain a childish version of Rabbi Akiva's understanding of what Torah accomplished, and a childish version of Rabbi Shmuel's understanding of what Matan Torah accomplished. But we haven't yet explained, how could Rabbi Shmuel say that nothing changed? That would seem to, minimize the power of Torah by saying the Jews were the same old Jews, their sight, whatever they normally see, they saw. Gashmis was the obvious to them. Ruchnis was still something distant. Really? The Torah accomplished nothing? That question has not been answered yet, and it's so far what we've learned today. We still need to understand, why would Rabbi Shmuel say, as a result of Matan Torah, you know what the greatest accomplishment is? That your sight and hearings have not been changed, altered. Everything is in its right. Our human tendencies have not changed one bit. Why would that be something novel and beautiful and holy and this is Matan Torah's chiddush? Why would that be when it's normal? It's the normal nature. That's how we are without Torah. So that remains to be seen. And then the Rebbe is going to explain that Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva's distinction, why they dispute, is based on who they were, what kind of people they were. Rabbi Shmuel was a Kohen Gadol. Rabbi Akiva came from converts. He wasted 40 years of his life. And because of their history, their background, very different backgrounds, this is the reason why they have different perspectives at what they think the greatness of Matan Torah accomplished, what they think the true novelty of Matan Torah is. It's a very powerful, beautiful part of the Sicha, where the Rebbe goes into their life, their whole life history, who they were, and based on who they were, they saw Matan Torah in different ways, and they're both beautiful. They're both very powerful. We'll learn about that. We'll have to wait till next week. Parsha Mishpatim. We'll leave that for next week. Yeah, I wanted to share with you a story, but there's no time for that. A story, Holocaust story, a very powerful story. 3 Holocaust survivors, huh? No, I think it's going to be much more than 3 minutes. The Holocaust story of 3 survivors that didn't know of each other. Each one thought the other one was dead. 3 Kohanim. And incredible Hashgacha Pratis brought them all together. through a Chabad rabbi who was invited to speak in a Satmar shul. And in that Satmar shul, and they asked him, please tell us a story. And he told his story. And through telling a random story, it was one of the three. It was incredible how these three people happened to me. But I can't give it away right now. It's a long story. But instead of me telling the story, I will let you hear a recording of Rabbi Moshe Brisky, how he tells the story. And it's a 10-minute story, right? I think about 10 minutes. Phenomenal, unbelievable, heart-wrenching story. How the three who thought each one thought the other two are dead and perished, they could never find each other. Shkacha Pratis was amazing how they met each other, all because of a strange request from a Satmar shul asking a Lubavitcher Shliach in China, who happened to be visiting Brooklyn, to say a story randomly. And he picked a random story, and that story ended up causing three people who never knew each other, who didn't know that the other two were alive, to finally meet each other after 50, 60 years of separation. But it's an incredible Shulchan Aruch story, so I'll leave that for next class. It's been Tuesday. But I want to finish the Sicha also next week. Don't if you want to give it back to me, give it back to me, but don't lose it. If you're not going to be here next week, then give it back to me. If you are going to be here, then please hold it. Don't leave it on the tables so we can continue next week.
Thank you.
My sons were doing, giving out matzah and Panhandle, and it's now they met. And the son in front of his, not come in, dogs will shoot on the property if you enter my property. And, it's not a Jewish area, and they went, of course, and.
Pensacola?
Yes. They went, of course, anyway, and knocked on the guy's door and stuff. Big guy with tattoos all over his body, long hair, older guy, and he sees this one dressed like a Hasid and the others, and they're talking to them. Anyway, he invites them in, he ends up crying, telling them stories, saying in prison,
Wow.
and not crying over that, crying over the Judaism. And he told a story of how his father, he never seen his brother again after the Holocaust. He went to Israel, first time.
No,
He went to Israel, searching.
Yeah.
And he was there stayed for 2 weeks. In search and search, I didn't find him. And the last day, he was at a gas station, ready to go back. This is this guy's father. And he starts humming this song. And this other guy starts humming the song. It's his brother.
Stories like that.
Yes, please. Yes. Oh, okay.
Oh, yes, no, in this is what I'm going to. Yes, actually, there's no zeros and he says that I don't think so.
I want to talk about that.
But I'm not, I can see that because he said this is. Yeah, no problem. It's not a goal.
What?
No worries. Amazing. Yeah, here.
What?
I want to. Yeah. Okay,
Oh, yeah, this does not make much sense.
I know.
Because I didn't see how you wrote it. Okay, so this one.
Wait, Nikki, what did you? Okay, sorry, I just,
Why?
I had to bring them the way I.
No,
read it.
yeah.
Okay, basically what she was saying was that we only experience like pleasure and want up in like endlessly. Like Hashem has a level of tester that's like, yeah. And then Atik Yainin and our Hamin. So Atik Yainin is the pleasure, and our Hamin is the will to achieve that pleasure. Okay. We can only understand like pleasure as something that is feeling you want. But Hashem doesn't have, we don't lack. We only understand pleasure as something that feels a lack. Okay. Like we want ice cream, so we get ice cream and we are happy we have ice cream. It feels a lack. Sorry. No.